Jon McLaughlin, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Anderson, Indiana. Tell us about it. A good place to grow up, little town, little college town.
Yeah, it's sort of, I suppose it's your typical, Midwestern town. It's kind of an old GM factory town, So if you take a bird's eye view of the town, it's kind of had hard times ever since I showed up on the scene in the 80s. But it was a great place to grow up, and I had a lot of family around, really musical family.
Had your parents gone to school there too?
They hadn't. My dad had grown up in Anderson. Didn't go to Anderson University, but my mom, who actually grew up in Texas, she ended up going to Anderson University, and we graduated on the same day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's a Christian school.
It is.
And so was your household, your upbringing, a kind of a strict Christian household, or was it just a practicing Christian household?
It was a practicing Christian household. It was not a strict. It definitely didn't have a vibe of a strict household. Yeah. My dad is a musician. His dad was a musician. He met my mom on tour with his band at a gig. It's in our blood. And so my dad was feeding me, Art Tatum and Harry Connick Jr. cassette tapes when I was a kid. And I'm the youngest of three, so my older sister, my older brother, they were already taking piano lessons. So that sound of a kid painfully learning piano in the house.
Oh boy.
That's like my childhood, you know. So
and it's a wonder you're still playing, actually.
I know. But it was a really great house, and there was a lot of music. And I remember seeing Billy Joel on a videotape, and he was playing Piano Man, and I was obviously too young to know what he was saying really, but I did know that the lyrics were something. I liked that I didn't know what the word meant, like a waitress is practicing politics, and I don't know, it just sounded exotic and awesome to me, and ever since I can remember, I've pretty much just wanted to do that,
And so in college, you really got to do that. You got to write songs and play and hone your craft.
Yeah, I grew up, taking piano lessons, playing classical mainly, and I would write little piano songs, but I didn't start writing I guess pop songs until I got to college.
Yeah. And was there ever a time in your career once you got out of college where you saw this fork in the road where you could be a Christian artist or a secular artist and both paths were viable?
I never, despite my Christian upbringing and going to a Christian school, I never wanted to go the Christian route in terms of the music industry.
Yeah.
There's just such a wall there, a line in the sand, sort of. I think that line is going away, thankfully, which is one of the perks of streaming and just music sort of just being just out there now. But I just wanted my music to be not judged before it was heard.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm sure getting signed to a major label was an amazing experience, and I bet that helped, I suspect, get your music into TV shows and film and things like that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I was signed with Island Records from 2005 until 2011. And, I studied music business in college, and it's funny because a lot of the spin coming from a Christian school in Anderson, Indiana, and going and talking about the mainstream music world, it had a spin of, there's a lot of snakes out there, you gotta watch your guard, and all that. And that has not been my experience at all. Yeah. I've been really blessed to work with so many great people, great executives, and great producers, songwriters, and all that. I've been really, really blessed.
Yeah. And you also, as far as I know, you had you were in this like sweet spot in the music business that when it was still existed. And you actually sold a single, like 500,000 singles on iTunes or something, right?
Yeah, it's crazy that, next year is the 10-year anniversary of my first record on Island. And so when I'm out touring and meeting other musicians, and of course I live in Nashville where it's just a hotbed of new talent, and so I'm talking with a lot of younger musicians, and the dates that I'm throwing out and the references I'm making, it's just a different world now, So I was really fortunate to sign a record deal that was right at at that borderline where once I signed that record deal, the record deals kind of changed after that, and labels were kind of going under, so they were taking a part of everything, right. 360 deals and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of hit it at a good time, I suppose.
Good timing. And then, and just quickly, I know there's, the big stories you got to play at the Oscars. That must have been amazing. Was that a game changer for you?
It was. I just can't even describe it. It's one of those things where people just kept asking me how does it feel to be here, and how does it feel to. We were there for about a week before doing rehearsals with the orchestra, which that in and of itself, even if they had told me like on Saturday night, like we're actually going to cancel the show, but we're going to do one more rehearsal, I would have been happy because the rehearsals were actually the most fun.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't fit it into my little brain what was happening. You try to take in the moment, but you're standing on stage, and while we would do the rehearsals that whole week, they actually had these gigantic cutouts of people's heads where they were going to sit, right? So the whole week, I knew where everybody was going to be. I knew Johnny Depp is going to be sitting right there. Tom Hanks can be right there. But I'm looking at giant cutouts of them, And so I tried
it's like a weird puppet show or something.
It was weird. I tried to not be thrown by now their actual human faces being in front of me while I was singing. But it was just amazing. There was this one moment in the middle of the song where there's a total break, and everybody waits for the vocal cue. And during the rehearsal, I would always kind of keep it in time a little bit. But I knew the whole time, I was like, once the Oscars rolls around this weekend, I'm going to milk that moment. That whole week they've been talking about how many hundreds of millions of people around the world watch this, and all these celebrities are in the theater, and I just get this one little moment where everybody's just waiting on me. So it was really cool. It was amazing.
Yeah, and they haven't asked you back.
I milked the moment a little bit too long.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a great experience, and I'm sure there were all kinds of other stories of backstage awkwardness with celebrities and things like that.
Yeah.
But we'll touch on that another time. You have your latest record is kind of a relationship record that ends on a bittersweet note, but we presume that your life is going well, that your marriage is still intact.
If you just listen to my music, you would have a very different view of what my life is. For some reason I just love sad songs. I just love sad songs.
Yeah.
And but no, I'm happily married. We just celebrated 10 years, and so Amy and I have been together since the beginning. Yeah. She was out on the road with us for about 7 years.
Yeah.
But this record, Like Us, is one that sort of it touches on. I wanted to touch on as many different angles of a relationship as I could, and at the beginning of a relationship, you don't have the experience necessarily to, or at least I didn't, to write some of these songs and really draw from. Some of them are my own experiences. Some of them are other, friends or couples that you sort of go through life together, and you find yourself, everybody's a little, kind of 10 years in, that type of thing. That really interested me, and I wanted to write a record that at some point each couple would think, oh, that part, that's kind of like
I
us.
recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quick, before we get back to music, I know, and by the way, just congratulations on maintaining a career and writing songs and original music and keeping it going and making records. It's not easy to do, especially these days. Before we get back to music, I know, just briefly, I discovered on this thing online in an interview where you're donating proceeds from your record to fight human trafficking, particularly in Bangladesh. How did that come to pass? How did that connection get made?
Well, I was having coffee in Nashville with a friend of mine who works for an organization called World Vision, and I had heard of World Vision before, but we had never worked together before. And I have 2 daughters, and even before my daughters Luca and Liv came along, I had something inside me that wanted to work with human trafficking and do something about it. It was actually a podcast that I listened to on Alec Baldwin's podcast that just wrecked me. One of those things where I just didn't know this was happening, you know. And but as it goes, unfortunately, I went a couple years without really doing anything, not really knowing where to take that first step. So I was having coffee with this guy, and it sort of started there. He said, well, we do tons with, you know, human trafficking and particularly with children. And I said to him, well, the record hadn't come out yet, but we had a tour coming up, and the record was coming out in October. And as a musician, that's our ammo, you know, that's what we have that we can do. And so I said, well, go back to your office, talk to the staff or whatever, and you tell me, I want to do something with human trafficking. You just tell me what to do, and we'll donate all the proceeds.
All the proceeds from the record.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so he came back to me about a week or so later, and we got together for coffee, and he brought me this folder, and, you know, it said Bangladesh on it, and he was like, this is sort of, they call it a source country because there's so much poverty, there's such a high population and such a packed in space that's kind of a hotbed for human trafficking. And so we raise money to build these safe houses for kids. So
amazing. And so I'm just imagining your tour manager who relies on record sales to pay for the bus and hotels and all that stuff. And you're saying, give me that money, I'm going to send it away to this charity. Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing is that I hesitate to say this because it's not, I will say I didn't do this on the spring tour, you know, so I'm not, we can throw the halo away for sure. But I did want to do something that felt a little uncomfortable. I wanted to do something that when I walked away, I'm like, all right, you know, it's a step of faith, you know.
It's a stretch.
Yeah, and I've had it pretty good in my life. So if I have a tour where I lose some money, everybody's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing it. Jon McLaughlin, it's good to get to know you a little bit. Let's get back to music. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Welcome back, if you would, Jon McLaughlin. Hi, this is Nick Forster from eTown. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.